Sounds good. And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Tuesday, some date in January. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by DK. We are brought to you by Portfolio EV, which you guys can get for a week for free. And you should do that by clicking the link in the description. Just 4 games tonight, 2 locking at 7:30, 2 locking at 10 o'clock. 5 of these teams are on back-to-backs, so we really had no idea what was happening for most of the day. Yet here we are with a lot more news and maybe some additional questions that we need to break down. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. DK, what's going on, man? How's your weekend?
Yeah, weekend was pretty good, pretty chill. Yesterday did not go well for me for DFS. David Roddy was a main reason why that did not work out. But yeah, as far as this 4-game slate goes, as you mentioned, a lot of back-to-backs, a lot of guys resting, potentially more too. So be interesting to talk about for sure. But yeah, ready to break it all down.
Yeah, it's an odd slate. The first team we're going to talk about is the Lakers. You rarely talk about these West Coast teams right out of the gate, but that's what's happening here. We got somebody just before we got started saying, on everyone's soul, we all playing Cody Williams tonight. Good luck with that. Cody Williams not going to be playing, so you're going to get a 0. That didn't take long. That took about 10 seconds before we got a recommendation of somebody that isn't available.
Did you see what happened yesterday with Bogdanovich and Al Horford?
I did, and I am very, very happy that I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I somehow avoided that, but that's pretty brutal if you had either of those guys. Just chalk it up as an L.
Yep, those are the worst parts of it all.
Sure.
The moment, so we were live on playback when the Horford non-news happened. The lineup changed, and Greg and I were both like, "Oh shit, he's not going to play."
Yeah, once I saw like 2 backup bigs come in and it wasn't Horford, I'm like, oh yeah, he's not playing. And then with Bogdanovich, like apparently he was in street clothes. I don't understand how we didn't get that news earlier. Like he didn't warm up or anything, was in street clothes, and like I don't understand how we didn't get that.
In the year 2025, this should not be happening any longer. There's not a single soul in the arena like letting that information get out.
Right.
Maybe that's the new inefficiency. Do we just need to go to games and react to what we're seeing in warmups and just jam bet it and not tell anybody? Is that the only thing that we could do now? Do we need a team where we're sending somebody to all the active arenas that day?
Yeah. I think that's the next move. Yeah.
Well, we'll have to look into that. Maybe I can get Stokastic to foot that bill for us. We can be on site for some of these games. But for now, we got some basketball to talk about, and we're starting it off with the Los Angeles Lakers, 4.5-point favorites in Philadelphia, 218 total. This is the lowest total of the day. Basically, the other 3 games are all in like the 226, 227 range. This one's like 8 or 9 points below. I have it as the slowest pace matchup here, 6 possessions slower than the Houston-Atlanta game, and 3 full possessions from the 10 o'clock games. Not a lot to talk about on the Lakers side. AD's probable. LeBron's probable. Rui is probable. Vanderbilt is out. finally came back, but managing him on the back-to-back. Gabe Vincent out. He's been out for a couple games now. We are getting 30% ownership to Anthony Davis, around 15 for LeBron on DraftKings, 20 on FanDuel. And then we've got, scattered ownership to the rest of these guys. A little bit coming into Reeves, a little bit coming into Christie, a little bit coming into Rui. Let's start at the top here. How are you feeling about a $10,500 Anthony Davis?
Yeah, really good spot here for AD, right? You have an undersized Yabusele on the other side. On the other side, you have Bona as the backup center. So pretty good spot here for Anthony Davis. Did you see what he did in the first quarter? I think he had 20 and 10 against Charlotte in the first quarter.
He definitely did have the full wholesale double right out of the gate.
Yep.
We actually had that game on for playback, so we were watching it, and then all of a sudden, chat like we're not really paying attention all that much to the game itself, especially at the start because we're reacting to the news that came in. But chat was like, "Yo, AD's got a double," and it was just like, "No," and then we looked it up, and it's like, "Yeah, he does."
Yeah, I was like, oh no, maybe playing Jokic yesterday was not a good idea. But Jokic still came through, not as much as AD. But yeah, so back to Anthony Davis. Right now, he's getting the most ownership on this team, coming in around 30%. I think that makes sense. Looking at the other spend ups on the slate, you have Giannis in a pretty good spot against Portland, but there's not a ton of other like spend ups, right? Obviously we'll talk about Maxey on the opposite side here, but we do have some value with Utah. We'll talk about a bit later. So you're gonna have to spend your salary somewhere. I think AD makes for a good spend up. In a competitive game, you're usually getting, mid to high 30s minutes for him. So yeah, I totally understand why he's getting the ownership. LeBron James at 10K coming in about half the ownership of Anthony Davis. I think it's about right. Like for me, I would definitely prefer AD to LeBron. With LeBron being half the ownership, I still think I would give the edge to Anthony Davis. But I'm not going to say no to 10K LeBron on a small slate. Obviously, he is a guy that has a pretty high ceiling. There's not a ton of ownership going to the rest of this team. I took a shot in Dalton Connect last night. That did not go well at all. You do have Rui Hachimura back, so you're going to get the same starters here for the Lakers. That's going to be LeBron, AD, Reeves, Rui, and Christie. I do think that, like Connect and Dorian Finney-Smith are going to play decent minutes off the bench. Don't really know if it's necessary to take shots in them in this slate with some of the other value that we have. And then the only other really guys to mention would be the other starters, Rui, Christie, both sub 10% owned. Maybe a little bit more interested in Rui than his current ownership. Christie feels about right. And then Reeves is basically completely unowned. He's coming in at 7.8K. Feel like he's a little bit overpriced. So I understand why he's not getting much love. And then, yeah, I'm not going to get to like Jackson Hayes on this slate either. So Lakers, honestly, pretty easy team to talk about.
I think I prefer LeBron to AD just because of the ownership. Like AD looks like a better individual play to me.
Yes.
But the half the ownership does stand out. That seems like, I don't want to say that it seems oddly high for AD or oddly low for LeBron, but just like the relationship between those two seems a little bit more extreme. I think they're a little closer. It's obviously easier to roster LeBron at power forward than it is AD at center, although, on a 4-game slate, center's a little bit different today. But I do like the idea of getting a little bit more LeBron if it means I'm just playing those two off of each other. The other guys, I think, are all just sort of like random 10%ers. It wouldn't really make much of a difference to me if I had Reeves or Christie or Rui in a lineup. To me, they're all sort of the same guy, depending on salary and what you're looking for. Dorian Finney-Smith is the only guy that's like a little, I don't know what to do with him. So I keep feeling like he's going to fall into more minutes. And, with Rui out, he got 26 and 27. I'm guessing that falls back down to the 24, 25 range, but should he be a little bit more interesting than 2% on a 4-gamer?
Yeah, he's probably underperformed a little bit for the amount of minutes that he's got. Obviously, you're not expecting Dorian Finney-Smith to be a good point per minute player for the Lakers, but yeah, like if you give him, mid 20s minutes again, I think you're going to expect better than the 0.5 fantasy points per minute he's been giving over the last few games. So
yeah,
yeah, like I think you're probably seeing not like 27, 26, maybe low to mid 20s. So 2% maybe does feel slightly underowned, but yeah, I think there's just other value we'll talk about that I think has a much higher ceiling.
I think we're on the same page there. I think it's pretty clear, at least from this, that AD and LeBron are the only true priorities coming from the Lakers side. There's nothing else looking like them on that team right now. Man, their bench is so bad on a per minute basis. Whew.
Yeah, it was really bad, and I was excited. I got connected like 5%. I'm like, oh, he's really the only guy that's going to play true minutes in this bench rotation. He played 15 first half minutes and literally did absolutely nothing.
0.6, 0.74, 0.64, 0.74, 0.81, 0.82. That's all of the per minute rates that I have for the guys that are getting regular minutes. That's not good.
No, it's not.
Well, now we could talk about even worse basketball players, which would be the Philadelphia 76ers side of this one. They're a little short-handed today. No Andre Drummond, no Joel Embiid, no surprise. No Paul George, no Caleb Martin, no KJ Martin, no Jared McCain. Luckily, Gershon Yabusele is probable for this one. Uh, we're getting a bunch of ownership here, but this one's kind of flipped from where the assumptions were this morning. The guy that looked like he was going to be the man for Philly was Ricky Council. Now it's looking like it's going to be Justin Edwards, but either way, we're getting value from these guys one way or the other. 40% ownership to Edwards right now, 3,800 small forward, power forward eligibility. We're getting 20% ownership to Maxey, 35 to Oubre, a little over 15 for Yabu, 15 for Eric Gordon. That's how you know the slate's wild. A 4-game slate and Eric Gordon's 15% owned, and you're getting 10 still to Ricky Council. Let's start with this dynamic between Edwards and Council. How do you feel about these guys? How do you feel about the minutes for each one of them? The ownership discrepancy between the two. These guys are an interesting balance if you're grabbing value from Philly.
Yeah. So first, obviously, I want to see what the starting lineup is. So the last game that Paul George missed, it was Ricky Council that started. In the second half, though, when Paul George went down, it was Justin Edwards that started the second half. So I did notice that like Council was pretty chalky earlier. His ownership has dropped. Now it's Justin Edwards. I think whichever one of the two starts is going to be the better point dollar option. I think right now the industry is leaning that it's going to be Justin Edwards. If it is Ricky Council that starts, though, I think Council has the higher ceiling than Edwards. Edwards has been like a solid role player for Philadelphia, but I don't know if he has like the massive ceiling where like Ricky Council, he'll shoot when he's out there, right? He's had a couple big games, one given minute. So again, I want to see that starting lineup. But if it's Council, I think that he has a bit of a higher ceiling. If it's Edwards, I think he's a solid point per dollar value. Either way, though, like whoever doesn't start would still be in play for me off the bench as well.
Yeah, they're both value plays no matter what. They don't have enough people to play minutes. Like,
Yeah.
Ricky Council is going to play 20 plus. Justin Edwards is going to play 20 plus. One of those guys might play 30 plus. I don't have a great feel for like how it ultimately gets distributed through the entire game, but there's upside to both of them. I wouldn't mind having both of them. I don't think they're blocking each other in any major way. I agree with where the ownership is to a degree in leaning towards Edwards. He's expected to get more minutes. They've got the same positionality. Council's a couple $100 more expensive, but this is sort of like the LeBron AD scenario. I'm very interested in the ownership relationship between both of them. They're both good plays, and I want to have them both. But like, if Council really is 9 by the time we get to lock, that might feel a little underrepresented for what we really need here for Philly. And I would assume Ricky Council is going to be playing blowout run in this game if it happens. I would also assume that Justin Edwards is probably joining him for that.
Yes, I would agree with that. And both, like if this game does get out of hand, both those guys will be out there for sure.
Yeah. So Tyrese Maxey gets to run the show. No Paul George, no Joel Embiid. He's 23% owned, but his positionality today is pretty busy. Trae Young exists, same sort of salary tier, point guard. Steph Curry exists, same kind of salary tier, point guard. Damian Lillard exists, same sort of salary tier, point guard. Maxey's the first one we're looking at. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, so currently, again, he's coming in around 20%. Feels a little bit light. And the reason I say that is just because you look at the rest of this team and it's like, man, Maxey's going to have to do everything. The rates are very solid for Maxey with Paul George and Joel Embiid off the court this year, 32% usage rate and 32% assist percentage. He's a 1.22 fantasy point per minute player. I think in a competitive game, you're probably expecting close to that 40-minute mark. So, yeah, I mean, I really like the upside here on Tyrese Maxey. I do think that if you're looking at some of the other spin ups in the slate, like Giannis and AD, again, it's probably a little bit easier to get to them. I think those guys are a little bit more optimal right now. But yeah, I mean, if this game does stay competitive, you're probably seeing a pretty big game from Maxey. Over the last 4 games, you've seen Paul George play a few of these games. He's gone for 50 plus in each of the last 4 games for fantasy purposes. Yeah, I think he's going a little bit underrepresented right now.
Oubre grabbing a little bit more ownership than Maxey, 6,200, shooting guard only. He's playing massive minutes. He's just sort of like out there for 36 minutes every night, no matter what's going on. I think that ownership looks completely reasonable. I actually think that Oubre looks like the easiest option to get to from Philly, outside of like whichever one of those value plays end up
Yep.
being the true starter. But how are you feeling about Oubre?
Yeah. I think right now he stands out as one of the better point per dollar options here in the mid range. So Philadelphia, they're going to run an 8 to 9 man rotation, and you're going to see huge mitts for Oubre as well. High 30s most likely. The rebounding numbers have been very solid for Oubre, and just because Philadelphia has kind of an undersized team out there. So, I mean, 12, 13 rebounds over the last couple games for Oubre. You would expect him to be number 2 in the team in usage with Paul George and Embiid off the court this year. You got Kelly Oubre around a 0.9 fantasy point per minute player. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. I think at 6.2K, he stands out as a good option and someone that's relatively easy to get to as well. So, yeah, I like Oubre a good amount.
Is it Yabu season today? Power forward center eligible, 6K. The normal starting center is out. The backup center is out. You've got Adam Bona here to be backup to Yabu. Pete Nance is going to be able to sit on the bench with a jersey on. Whether or not he gets used is a different story. Only pulling 17% ownership. He's not a good per minute guy. He's not a bad per minute guy.
Right.
He gets whatever minutes he wants today. If this is in any way competitive and he's not in foul trouble or injured, he's going to be out there for the large majority of this game. I feel like he's essentially properly owned, but he's also a guy that when I look at his ownership, I think that seems like I should have more.
Yeah, so I think he's properly owned as well. Last game, he only played 29 minutes. I wouldn't be super worried about, though. He got 3 quick fouls, only played 10 minutes in the first half. He actually played 19 second half minutes. So I think if he avoids foul trouble, you should see somewhere in that like 36 to 38 minute range for Yabusele. 6K and the current ownership. Again, like I don't think he's overowned. I don't think he's underowned. I just feel like it's about right. It is nice that he's got power forward eligibility, so it's a little bit easier to get him to your lineup. But yeah, I don't have any really super strong takes right now on Yabusele with his current ownership.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. I assume no real strong takes on Eric Gordon either. He's just out there. He's terrible per minute, but like it's a 4-game slate.
Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. Like I think you're probably seeing around 30 minutes. He's really not good point per minute, but he's only 4K. If he knocks down a few shots, gets a couple peripheral stats, like yeah, he's going to be an okay value option. I think again, whoever starts between Edwards and Ricky Council's the value play I would much rather have, but like Gordon's like a fine last piece in guy.
Here's an interesting question for you. Who's more interesting to you? The guy that doesn't start between that two or Eric Gordon?
I think the guy that does not start between the two. I mean, ownership would play a role, but like right now,
Sure.
Council's only projecting for he's like projecting for 9% ownership.
Yeah,
so
he's below Eric Gordon right now.
Right. So I assume if Edwards starts and that ownership stays the same, like I would much rather take the shot on Ricky Council.
Okay. Any thoughts on Reggie Jackson or Kyle Lowry? Other than just saying no, which would make sense.
Yeah, I think it's a no for me.
Okay.
I'm expecting both those guys to be in the rotation. It's kind of weird because Reggie Jackson, it was like last week when they were extremely shorthanded, and he was like the one guy that did not play. They had 9 active players, but now they've dusted him off, and he's like back in the rotation again. But yeah, I think that's probably getting a little bit too cute for me with the dusty guards there and Jackson and Lowry.
We're gonna have some other opportunities for backup centers, but any Bona?
I think it's viable on a 4-game slate. The downside of the Bona is he's not a great point per minute player, right? And I think on average he's playing like low to mid-teens minutes or so. You would need the Yabusele foul trouble, which is definitely possible, but you would need the Yabusele foul trouble, I think, for Bona to have the really good game at his price point. So it's not complete. Like I think I'd rather play Bona than Reggie Jackson or Lowry. But yeah, nothing I'm excited about at all.
Okay. Kyle Neubeck just reported Paul George underwent an MRI and ultrasound, which revealed an injury to the extensor tendon in his left fifth finger. George's return to play will be determined in the coming days. Just cut it off, man. It's your left pinky. Do you even use that? What a useless finger.
Yeah,
And
no need
Jim
for that.
Miller will fight Chase Hooper at UFC 314. So old man Jim Miller fighting child Chase Hooper. That should be fun to see. Anything else for the Sixers? I think we hit everybody.
Yeah, yeah, no, expecting 8 to 9 guys in the rotation, so I don't think there's anything else to mention.
Alrighty, well, hit that like button, everybody. We need to build that total up for the Live Before Lock crew. Schedule for the rest of the day is very simple. Live Before Lock will come up next. They'll be at 6:30. I believe it's Eric and Belman today. Greg is off. And because of the way the games are set up, we're not going to have playback tonight either because both games lock at 7:30. We won't really have any news or ownership things to react to immediately for the show. So no playback tonight. All we've got is Live Before Lock. And you're going to want to be there because we've got 4 teams locking at 7:30. We're going to want every bit of their lineups, every bit of their news. We've already gotten some of it, which we're going to touch on at least a little bit right here. The Houston Rockets are 6-point favorites in Atlanta, 226 total, fresh off of a big win against the Boston Celtics yesterday. Shout out Amin Thompson. Seems like people want to get to Amin Thompson today as he is 43% owned, the most owned guy for Houston by far. But we do have to talk quickly about the injury news for Houston. Steven Adams is out. That is largely irrelevant for this discussion. Tari Eason is out on the back-to-back. Jabari Smith still out. And then Cam Whitmore is questionable, which is an interesting designation that we need more information on because he is 30% owned, the second most owned guy for Houston. Shooting guard, small forward eligible, only 3,800. And then you're getting 10% ownership. Well, you were getting 10 to Steven Adams. That'll probably transition at least a little bit to your Jeff Greens or Jock Landales or whoever we end up projecting in. Şengün's getting 15. Brooks is at 10, fresh off of his 10 made threes yesterday. Jalen Green's getting 10% ownership, and then Van Vliet is very lightly owned. Let's start at the top, though. 8K Amin Thompson, the hero of Houston right now. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, so I totally understand why he's getting ownership. I think right now maybe going slightly over owned, but I mean, like you're getting Amen Thompson basically every single night playing around 40 minutes. He's really, really good rebounder. Like over the last 5 games, he's averaging over 10 rebounds per game. The potential assists have ticked up for Amen Thompson as well. He's had the ball in his hands a lot more too. So like I get why he's getting ownership, but maybe going slightly over owned. And I think that some of the other Rockets, some of the other like main starters are going a bit under owned. If Cam Whitmore doesn't play, like I expect you're just going to get big minutes here for Houston for like the main guys. Like last game, they ran a 9-man rotation, but starters played huge minutes, like 34 minutes for Şengün, 40 for Brooks, 37 for Van Vliet. Jalen Green played 30. Amen Thompson played 42. So, yeah, expecting big minutes there for the starters for Houston. But yeah, so I get why Amen Thompson's getting the ownership. I think he stands out as probably the easiest guy to get to. But at over 40%, it does feel a little bit high to me. What are your thoughts?
A little high, but I'm also not super surprised by it. Like the
Yeah.
position's fantastic. The matchup is great. Pace up spot for Houston against a less than stellar Atlanta team, just like a completely average basketball team. He's a great per minute guy. I had him at 21% optimal, 43% boom, but his target score is only 42, which is not that far ahead of where I have him projected. I think he's just really functionally easy to click on, which scares the hell out of me at this 8K price tag. But I mean, if he's just going to keep playing 40 minutes every night, like he might just get there by default. He's like the new Josh Hart.
Yeah, like they are just not subbing him out. I think the only real thing you have to worry about is like potential foul trouble. He is somewhat
Yeah.
foul prone. He's gotten in foul trouble a couple games, but yeah, I mean, if he gets his 40 minutes, he's most likely gonna have a pretty solid day.
Alrighty. I assume if Whitmore is in, you like him at 3,800 with that positional eligibility.
Yep, and it's just because the bench is pretty thin here with Eason and Jabari Smith out. So I think Whitmore, you're probably expecting around 20 minutes or so from him, and possibly more if he plays well. And Whitmore is a guy that he'll chuck when he's out there. If he's making his shots and he's playing well, they can extend him a bit. So he does have the nice eligibility too with shooting guard, small forward. So yeah, assuming he's in, I think he's a really good value option.
If he's out, do you think you get to either Jayshawn Tate or Jeff Green?
Uh, See, I think they
Yeah.
would just run like a combo of like Jay Sean Tate, Aaron Holiday, Jeff Green. Man, I
Because
think,
Green now has the ability to play the backup center role and some four. That's what's I don't know if he's going to do it or not, but with Adams out, that opens Green up in a way that I don't like.
do you
To be fair,
think
Jeff Green also sucks.
he does? Do you think Landell gets backup five run? I know the last game Steven Adams missed. I'm pretty sure Landell was playing backup five. I think it was the game against Detroit. Let me
He got
confirm
10
that.
minutes on the 20th, but it's been a sea of DNPs. He hasn't played more than 10 minutes in a game since November 26th. It's all just
Hmm.
been scattered. So it's tough to say. We've definitely gotten more of Jeff Green in that run.
Yep.
Um, it kind of leads me to think that it would be Jeff Green here.
Yeah, I think he would be in consideration. I wouldn't have a ton of confidence in it though. But yeah, I think you would like consider those guys. But man, it would. Yeah, I do think you could get some. I'm glad you brought that up. I do think you could get some small ball, Jeff Green, with how shorthanded they are if Whitmore's out.
Okay. And then do you have any takes on separating like Shingun, Brooks, Green, Van Vliet? Does one stand out more than the other? They all look pretty similar to me.
Yeah, I would say they all look pretty similar. Again, I think they're all going just a bit under owned. The minutes for Shingun have been decent over the last couple of games, 34, 33. He was hovering in like the 30-minute range for a while. We know Shingun's a pretty good point per minute player. Right now, again, coming in basically a third of the ownership of Amen Thompson. So yeah, I think he's going a bit under owned. I think he is the guy on this team that probably has the highest ceiling.
All righty. Anything else for Houston right now?
No, just keep an eye on the Whitmore news. Again, if he's in, I think he's a really good value. If he's out, then you got to start considering some of those fringe guys like Jay Sean Tate, Jeff Green, guys like that.
So, Atlanta is a different team than what they were when we started this show. We got injury news and we got to hit on all of it. And I want to make sure that I don't
Mhm.
miss any of it. Trae Young is in. Bogdan Bogdanovic is out prior to lock, I might add. So, we got those two pieces of info. Risashe is out as well now. So, no Bogdanovic, no Jalen Johnson, no Risashe, Trae Young in. Now, prior to the news about Risashe, we were essentially not getting ownership to Atlanta. 6% to Trae Young, 10 to DeAndre Hunter, 10 to Okongwu. Everybody else was lower than that. Let's just open it up kind of wide since no one was getting any love. And I'm going to start at the top here. 9,500 for Trae. Wasn't pulling much ownership. Maybe it comes up a little bit now that he's officially in. How do you feel about him? Because we already talked about Tyrese Maxey getting a bit more
Right.
ownership. We're going to talk about Steph and Lillard here. Do you like Trae in this spot?
I don't love them. I think I would rather get to Maxi at a similar price point if I'm going to go to a bit more of like a contrarian spend up. But Trae Young on the season with Jalen Johnson off the court, 1.23 fantasy point per minute. Again, not the best matchup here. So he's not getting a ton of love, but I kind of agree with it. I'm not really on Trae. Do you have a little bit more interest than his current ownership?
I do.
Okay.
To me, he looks like a really nice, if the ownership remains how it is, he looks like a
Mhm.
really interesting pivot around those other point guards because Maxi's getting 20 plus ownership. Curry is at 20 in our most recent run. Dame is at 38. Trey is not that unlikely to have a big game. And like he could very easily be the highest scorer of all four of those guys. And no one's going to look at it and think like, well, how did that happen? But he's 6% owned compared to Dame at 38. Like that disparity is just too big for me. So I think Trey is just the perfect guy to switch to. Like if you build out your lineup and it's like a little too chalky, You
Mhm.
probably have one of those point guards in that lineup somewhere just by default for what this slate is. I love the idea of swapping to him. I don't think he looks like the best option, but he does relative to his ownership.
Okay. Yeah, I get that.
Does anything else look good for Atlanta here? Like, Daniels wasn't getting much love. I don't think the Shea news changes anything there. Krejci probably can get an extra minute or two, but he's a not the best per minute guy. I don't think he looks much different. Hunter is just going to play 30 or 31 minutes no matter who's in or out at this point. I think he just kind of looks a little better, but nothing crazy.
Hmm.
Garrison Matthews probably gets some more minutes now. That probably doesn't matter. I mean, maybe it does with no Bogdanovich too. Does Larry Nance play? What do we do here with Atlanta? Because they just don't look good.
Yeah, they're a tricky team to figure out exactly what they're going to do with their rotation, but I agree. Not a ton stands out here. I think Daniels is definitely overpriced with Trae Young back. DeAndre Hunter, I would say, is the guy that is probably the easiest to get to. He's hovering around 10% ownership. Again, not like a someone I'm going to go out of my way to play, but I think he's a fine option. With Jalen Johnson off the court, he's got a 25.7% usage rate, basically number two behind Trae Young. So he'll get some shots up for sure. I mean, last game he got 21 shots up. Now again, that was without Trae Young too, but yeah, I think Hunter at 5'7" is someone that you can land on for sure. The rest of the team, I just I don't know. Even with Shea being out, I really don't know if that does a ton for me. You're gonna
Yeah.
get the split there with Okongwu and Capella. 6.6K for Okongwu, 4.6K for Capella. Neither getting much love. Neither really stands out to me. We already mentioned Daniels. I think he's overpriced. I think that Krejci's overpriced. Garrison Matthews at 4.4. I don't even know if Bogdanovich being out really is like a huge boost to him either. And then like some of these fringe guys, like do we see some Keaton Wallace? Do we see Larry Nance, David Roddy? I don't know. There's nothing really looking good here for Atlanta for me.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page as you. I just don't know what that ultimately ends up creating for us. I don't think it's much. Because like you got to give Garrison Matthews a lot of minutes for him to look good. He's just not that great of a per minute guy, and everybody else is sort of already projected the way that they should be. You're not taking off any sort of massive usage guys in Shea or Bogdanovich. So yeah, I like to me it's I like Hunter no matter what because he's just sort of always out there, and I think Trae Young
Yep.
looks like an interesting pivot, but they are pretty clearly to me the worst team on the slate.
Yes. Of the eight teams on the slate, I agree with that. Who do you think what do you think they do with the starting lineup? It's gonna be what, Trae Young, Dyson Daniels, Okongwu, um, Vit
I
Krejci, and then do we
it
see
sh
like
it
Larry
should
Nance
be
start?
Hunter. Like
Think Hunter will
logically, it
start?
should be Hunter. I don't think they just never started.
Yeah, they don't.
So it either Larry Nance or Garrison Matthews, probably.
Yeah. Last game was a couple games ago. Larry Nance got like kind of a spot start.
Yeah.
He played 20 minutes. So I think it will be him. But even if he does start again, I'm not super confident in his minutes at all. Like we seen,
This doesn't strike me as the Larry Nance at the four matchup
I
either,
know.
which makes me think they'll go Garrison Matthews. Because I think you could handle like Vit Krejci being the four against, Amon Thompson, who's the four in this scenario. Like
Hmm.
they don't have that sort of dude. Like if you're going up against a double big set like the Cavs or something, I could see it. I mean, that said, it's probably just going to be Larry Nance because I'm saying this now, but this doesn't strike me as the spot you do that. It should just be Hunter and everything would make sense, but it's
Great.
not going to be.
Yeah, and we seen earlier in the year, when like we seen Nance get spot starts before at the four. Like we a couple times we started and played like 10, 15 minutes. So even if he does get the start, like I said, I'm not super confident in the minutes at all.
Alrighty. Well, I mentioned Portfolio EV earlier. We're going to talk about it right now. This is a no-brainer. If you are looking to play on any pick'em sites or any sports books and you've been interested or haven't, maybe you don't even know what OddsShopper and the Portfolio EV tool are. If you've never signed up before, you can get it for a week for free. We take a market-based approach to beating sports books and pick'em sites. We give you expected win rates on all the plays, all the props, expected value. You can mass enter. So if there's 10 bets available, you can click a button. It'll load everything up into your card. Recommended bet size, parlay calculators, odds boost calculators, advanced data. You name it, we've got it. And you can check it all out, and it's not going to cost you anything. This is the new way to slowly maintain and build a bankroll that isn't playing cash games the way that it used to be described. This can fund your GPP shots. This could be your slow trickle. You're not going to become a millionaire overnight by betting like this, but you are going to be a better sports bettor by doing it like this. Lots and lots and lots of little wins instead of just trying to acquire one giant win. Leave the one giant win for the GPPs and the DFS side. Use OddsShopper in the portfolio EV tool to maintain your bankroll in between it all. Get out of those 50-50s and double ups. Use it for sports betting and pick'em cards. Funnel all those winnings back to DFS and dump them back to DraftKings, the classic way that everybody else does it. So if you want to sign up, the link is in the description and probably in chat. The Utah Jazz are 14-point dogs in Golden State, 227 total. This should be a real gem. The Jazz will be without Jordan Clarkson, John Collins, Walker Kessler, Lauri Markkanen, Cody Williams. Colin Sexton, Oscar Tshiebwe are available for this one. This is a very disgusting team, but we are getting 25% ownership to Isaiah Collier, 25% ownership to Svi Mykhailiuk, 40% to center Drew Eubanks, another 15 to Kyle Filipowski, and then single-digit ownership to everybody else. Although I will add Colin Sexton, pretty heavily owned on the FanDuel side, where he's $700 cheaper. Let's start with Eubanks, because he's a very different play than getting to say Anthony Davis. But assuming he is the starter here, how do you feel about him as a value center option?
Yeah, I think right now he stands out as one of the better values. He started at the 5 last game. He played 22 minutes. I think you're expecting similar run here for Eubanks. Not an awful point per minute option, or not an awful point per minute guy. Again, he's 4.1K. So, yeah, I think he's pretty easy to get to. Definitely stands out as a good value. As far as starting lineup goes, do you think it's going to be Collier, Colin Sexton, Svi Mykhailiuk, Mika Potter, and Drew Eubanks?
Yes.
Okay.
Have you seen anything on why Keontae George lost his job?
I haven't. So that one confused me. I think there was one game where Utah actually started. I want to say all three of the guards, Collier, Keontae George, and Sexton. I could be wrong in that, but I'm pretty sure there was one game where they did do that. But yeah, I haven't seen anything in George. He's still been playing good minutes off the bench, but yeah. No, I haven't seen anything on why they've been starting.
He started every game this season until 2 games ago, and now he's out of the starting lineup but still playing 30 minutes. I have no idea what the goal is there.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
I mean, I basically never know what the hell Utah is doing from a decision-making process, so I guess that makes some sense. I think the Collier ownership looks good. I think the Drew Eubanks ownership looks fine. I'm pretty, I don't love the price, and I don't think it's a very lovable price, but I feel like Colin Sexton's a little bit more interesting than 6% owned, being like the only adult left in the room here.
Yeah, I think both Keontae George and Colin Sexton are interesting contrarian options.
That works for me too. George fits this as well.
Yeah, I'm expecting around 30 minutes for both those guys. Again, you look at the makeup of this roster. Those 2 guys should be your two highest usage players. With Keontae George too, even though he's moved to the bench, still has the ball in his hands a ton. Over the last couple of games, the 2 games off the bench, 57 passes made, 11.5 potential assists per game. So the only guy he's behind is Collier, who's averaging 67 passes made and 18.5 potential assists. So you're still going to have the ball in Keontae George's hands a lot. And again, I think he's going to get a lot of shots up too. So yeah, I do think your 2 I guess main guards for Utah in Keontae George and Colin Sexton are going a bit under-owned, both around 5%. And then Isaiah Collier, again, he's getting around 30% ownership. He's 5.2K. Stands out as a just pretty good option. Again, I think he's someone that's probably blowout proof too if this game gets out of hand. I still think he'll be on the court if the game does blow out. So as we mentioned, the potential assist numbers have been really, really good for him. So assuming, again, he's getting around 30 minutes with a shooting guard eligibility. Yeah, he stands out as a pretty good option kind of here in the mid-range.
Potter, Filipowski, Sensabaugh. Do we do anything with these guys?
I kind of like Kyle Filipowski as a pivot to Drew Eubanks. Okay. He's at 4.3K. I think he's going to play the backup 5 to Eubanks. Filipowski, decent point per minute, does have the power forward eligibility as well. and coming in about a third of the ownership. I actually think that Filipowski will probably play a few extra minutes or a few minutes more than Eubanks.
Okay.
So they're projected basically for the same amount of minutes. I think that Filipowski probably plays another minute or two. So I do kind of like him as a pivot to Drew Eubanks. Not saying Eubanks is a bad value, but I think Filipowski right now is going a bit underowned. Looking at him.
I like that shout. Yeah, that's another spot where like there's this pretty clear disparity in ownership between two guys on the same team, and we don't have a ton of confidence in the roles that are being played by those guys.
Mhm.
And when you see that disparity, it just becomes an interesting spot of like, okay, I built this lineup with Drew Eubanks. Maybe I just turn this into Kyle Filipowski and make it a little bit more contrarian. I like it. I like
Right.
it.
Um, what are your? It's weird these Bryce Sensabaugh minutes. I don't even know what to make them.
For
He played
real.
9 against Memphis, 15 against Milwaukee. Um, I mean, it feels like his role has just been way down. I know he's 5K, but I don't think I can get to him. But I don't know. I don't understand why Sensabaugh is not getting more run right now for this team.
They liked him there for that little stretch of time, like two,
Hmm.
3 weeks ago, and I just thought that that was going to become like a pretty regular thing. But they stopped liking him pretty quick. I don't know
Yeah,
why. I'm sure he'll
it's
blow up
telling.
today. Like you never know with these guys. He'll Mikhailuk will play 12 minutes. Sensabaugh will play 28 off the bench. I mean,
I will say,
last week
yeah,
he
like
played 24, 24, 27, and 27, four back-to-back games. Where'd it go?
right. The Jazz rotation is it's hard to predict what they're going to do. It really is. So like, yeah, like could Sensabaugh come out here and play 25 minutes? It's possible. Like sometimes they'll run a bit of a tighter rotation. They'll play 9 guys. Sometimes they'll empty the bench and play 11 guys. And it's just like I just never know what to do with the rotation for Utah because it's just so hard to predict.
It's the worst. It's the absolute worst. Then we get to Golden State. It was really also not a fun team to project. No Draymond Green, no Jonathan Kuminga, but we don't have any other weird injury stuff going on for this team. What we do have are three guys, 20% owned, in Steph Curry, Moses Moody, and Brandon Pajemski, around 10% to Wiggins, and then call it five for the rest of this team. Let's just get Steph out of the way quickly. I think
Mhm.
he looks like the other three major point guards on the slate. I don't have much of a take. He looks good. I'm happy to have him, and Utah should meet. He should not have much resistance against this Jazz team.
Yeah, like the matchup here for Steph. I think he has a pretty high ceiling. I think I would slightly prefer Maxi for a little bit more at similar ownership, but yeah, 8.8K Steph. If you want to get to him against the Jazz, I see no issue with that.
Yeah, to me, those guys are all just a grab bag. Whatever you like in that particular lineup, I wouldn't tell anybody that they got the wrong dude when it comes to those point guards. Where do you land on this 20% to Moody, 20% to Pajemski scenario we've got going on today?
Man, I don't feel good about it at all.
Nope.
I don't trust this rotation whatsoever. Um, so I know like the minutes on Pajemski and Moody have been decent over the last couple games, but I mean, this could very easily be Gary Payton playing more. This could very easily be, Buddy Hield playing more. They could run Dennis Schroeder more off the bench. Like, I just have no faith whatsoever right now in this rotation. And if the field's going to gravitate towards Pajemski and Moody, those are two guys that I'll probably be okay just not having.
Yeah, I like Moody more than I like Pajemski here. Similar point per dollar plays. Moody better positionality, same exact price. I feel a little bit more confident in Moody than I do in Pajemski. I don't love either bit of that. Wiggins is
Mhm.
totally fine. I don't have anything like interesting to say about Andrew Wiggins. He's just one of the real NBA players that plays 30 minutes here. But yeah, I'm with you. Like I don't have any confidence that it's not a Buddy Hield day, a Santos
Right.
day, a Shooter day. So that's where it starts to get a little tricky. What else gets tricky? I don't know what's going on with Trace Jackson Davis's minutes lately, but he is a starter that doesn't participate like a starter. You've got Kevon Looney showing up for like 12 minutes a game, and now you've got Quentin Post, who's just like a part of the rotation and a backup center. Do you want Post? Do you want Looney? Do you want Trace Jackson Davis? Is Post better than Bona? Is Post better than Utah dudes? God, Golden State sucks.
It's such a headache. Basically, whoever starts at the center for Golden State, you just can't play. I feel like the last 3 or 4 games, whoever started the 5 has barely played. It's been Jackson Davis for a few games. It was Looney one game, and then he left for an illness and played 9 minutes. So like it doesn't matter who starts there. You just have no confidence in the minutes. Right now, you're seeing all three centers play with Jackson Davis, with Kevon Looney, and with Quentin Post. It actually was Quentin Post that closed last game, but like I said, I have no confidence in that whatsoever. None of them are really getting any ownership. I mean, I guess if I had to play one, it would be Post since he's the cheapest. But like I said, I just have absolutely no confidence in this center rotation at all.
Yeah, same. I didn't really realize it when I started doing projections this morning, and I just immediately usually like throw starter minutes in like abruptly, and then I go back and dig through it. And I started looking at Trace Jackson Davis. I was like, what is happening? I was like, oh, this must have been just like truly aggressive foul trouble. Then I clicked
Mhm.
on it and he played like a 3 minute rotation at the start of the first quarter, no fouls whatsoever, then played like two more minutes in the second quarter, then was gone for ages. I was like, okay, I don't understand any bit of anything that is happening here other than it doesn't seem like I'm going to be getting to a center from the Golden State Warriors.
Yep.
I can't wrap my head around it. Do you have anything else you want to add here for the Warriors?
Um, no, I don't think so. Someone in chat mentioned Slow-Mo. He was a DNP last game, so I don't think he'll play in this game.
No. I mean, I'm sure he will, but
Yeah.
I don't have him projected in.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you do never know with Steve Kerr. So,
Yeah, they don't look appeal. Other than like I wouldn't if Steph Curry is the name I see in my lineup or Andrew Wiggins, it's like okay, those guys are NBA players that I feel good about that'll get minutes from Steve Kerr. After that, yikes. Slightly into Moody over Pajemski. And right now we have Moody at 18%, Pajemski at 23. I feel even better about that. We got an ownership update at 602 or 603, just in
okay.
case you have anything in front of you and wanted to refresh. All
Cool.
right, guys.
Thanks.
Coming down the home stretch. Final game. Remember, live before lock coming up next. 218 likes, 1,700 people. That's actually a pretty damn good ratio so far. And I haven't asked too much. We could make that ratio be pretty crazy. 81 of you need to hit the like button to get this number up over 300. And I'm pretty confident that 81 of you can do that. So if you can, hit that thumbs up as we close this one out with the Milwaukee Bucks, 6 point favorites in Portland, 229 total. Milwaukee's rotation looks a little bit different today than I was expecting. Giannis probable. Dame is in. AJ Green still out. Bobby Portis still out. Have you seen anything on the personal reasons for him? Did he have a kid or something?
No, I couldn't figure it out. I know he's missed what now 3 games now, but yeah, I couldn't find
Yeah,
any information on Portis.
that's probably not good. So I hope everything's good with Portis and his peeps. But we also got Chris Middleton probable today. I did not anticipate Chris Middleton playing this game, but when you barely play, I guess it's not that bad to play a back-to-back. We are getting 35% ownership to Dame on DraftKings. He's 9% on FanDuel because he's $1,100 more expensive. We're getting 35% ownership to Giannis, 11.7 on DraftKings, power forward, center eligible. And then we're getting basically 10 to Lopez, Prince, Trent. And let's start with the Giannis piece here. I think he looks very clearly awesome. The matchup's great. He's one of the best permanent guys on the planet. There's only really like him and AD in competition of like true pay-ups. I mean, LeBron, yes, but at power forward only, it's a little different. I think Giannis is the best play of the slate in terms of pay-ups, and I don't think that we have any problem finding the salary. Where do you land on Giannis?
Yeah, I agree. I think Giannis is your best spend up right now. With Bobby Portis out, they don't really have a backup big. So you've been seeing like Giannis play the backup five over the last couple of games. He had 18 rebounds there against Utah, 13 rebounds against the Clippers. So he's already a good point per minute player. But I think you give him a slight bump too, just because again he's basically like playing the backup five. The Bucks last game technically ran a 9-man rotation, but
Yeah.
you saw 7 minutes of Pat Connaughton, 7 minutes of Ryan Rollins. So assuming this game stays competitive, yeah, I think you're going to see big minutes for the main guys. Giannis on the season's a 1.67 fantasy point per minute player. So I think he looks great. And then Dame, revenge game narrative, he's also getting similar ownership coming in at 8.7K. He's 1.26 fantasy point per minute player on the year. He played 41 minutes last game. Yeah, I think both the main Bucks look really good. I think I would slightly prefer Giannis to Dame, but I think both are really solid point per dollar plays.
Now that we've talked about all four of them, how do you feel about that Dame ownership? How do you want to manage the 4 point guards?
Yeah, so looking at like the top end point guards, um, I think I think Dame's probably the easiest to get to, but I also think he's probably a little bit overowned. I think again, still Max would be my preferred option of like the spend up point guards.
Okay.
But yeah, I totally understand why Dame's getting a lot of love.
Same. I'm not surprised to see it. Matchup's great, minutes are great, role is great, no Portis. It all checks out to me. I'm fascinated by the relationship between the four of them tonight because like getting that one right is going to be the key. It's going to surprise me greatly if at least one of those four dudes aren't a relevant play in a winning lineup today. So getting that one right is going to be pretty tough because they are all pretty similar, all things considered. What do you do with the rest of these guys? Lopez, Prince, Trent, Middleton. The minutes for Lopez have been really nice as of late. They have definitely been up lately, especially with no Portis, as you mentioned. Prince is just awful, but plays. Trent is pretty awful and plays. Middleton is, I don't even know what Middleton is anymore. Do you have a preference between those four guys?
Oof. I think it's probably Middleton. I was a little bit surprised too because Middleton's only played one back-to-back this year, but
Yeah.
he's in. You're probably expecting around 25 minutes for Middleton. Again, he'll do some playmaking as well. Potential assist has been decent for him of late. It does have nice eligibility too. So I think Chris Middleton is a decent point per dollar option. And I'm glad you brought up Brook Lopez minutes too. So I talked about how Giannis has been playing some backup five. Well,
Yeah.
Brook Lopez minutes have been way up, like 41 minutes against the Clippers, 35 against Utah. So I think you're probably expecting mid 30s minutes for Brook Lopez. Now he's not the best point per minute player, but yeah, if you're going to run him out there for 35 minutes at sub 10% ownership, I think he's someone that I would like to be a bit overweight to. And then the other value plays, Rollins, I don't think I can get to. Gary Trent and Taurean Prince, both hovering around 10%. Neither are great point per minute players. I think you're probably going to feel a little bit more confident in the minutes for Taurean Prince. I think the ceiling's probably a bit higher in Gary Trent if he can make a shot. So, yeah, if you're shooting for the ceiling, I think it's Trent. If you're shooting for the minutes, I think it's Taurean Prince, but no real super strong takes in those guys. And then Andre Jackson is 3.5K. I still don't think I can go there. So I don't think, I wouldn't get to Connaughton either. So yeah, that's basically it for Milwaukee for me.
Well, we finish it off with the Portland Trailblazers, and they're still up in the air, which will make late swaps interesting if we don't have this news by 7:30. DeAndre Ayton, questionable for today, which is interesting because he has now missed the previous three games. By all accounts, we have Robert Williams and Donovan Clingan ready to go today. So we would see those guys getting most, if not all, of the center minutes for Portland. But if Ayton is in, he also looks like a decent play to me at 6,300. There's very little ownership coming in, except for my dude. Anthony Simons projected for 30% ownership. And then you get Denny at 10 and Ayton at 10. Everybody else is 5 or below. Let's talk about the Anthony Simons ownership right now. How do you feel about it? Because, I mean, I normally have this guy projected a little bit better than the industry, but for once, the industry is here, and I still think it looks correct.
Yeah, maybe going a bit overowned, but I mean, I like this team in general. I think Portland, some of these other options are going underowned, but yeah, Simon's around 30%, 6.1K. You should see around 35 minutes or so from him, assuming the game does stay competitive. So again, maybe going slightly overowned, but I think he's probably the guy you're gonna feel the best about getting to.
Okay.
I'm pretty high in Denny as a contrarian play. He's 7.2K. Minutes have been very solid for him in competitive games. 39 against Miami, 34 against Charlotte, 38 against Oklahoma City. I would like him a little bit better if DeAndre Ayton is out because you've been seeing some small ball Portland lineups with DeAndre Ayton out because you're going to get Clingan starting, probably playing around 20 minutes. You're going to have Rob Williams backing him up, probably playing similar. Then I would expect, probably 6 to 8 minutes of Portland going small ball. If they do, that just slightly benefits guys like, Denny, Jeremy Grant, and Kamara. So I like Denny as contrarian play around 10%. And then the other guards like Shaedon Sharpe, 5.3K, basically getting no ownership. Now, I know the minutes last game were disappointing, right? He struggled. He only played 19 minutes, but 31 there against Charlotte. 28 there against Miami. I also like him as a contrarian play because I think if he plays well, he could definitely play over 30 minutes here. And right now he's getting basically no ownership. What's your thoughts on Sharpe?
Love him. 5% owned. I have him 15% optimal, 28% chance of scoring 30 fantasy points, which is where I have what we need. Like he could just as easily have a better day than last time and get those minutes.
Mhm.
Like I think the push pull of the playing time for him and Scoot is going to be very like context dependent. Some days you're going to get them both. Some days you're going to get one and not the other. And I think that's going to move around a little bit. Um, I don't think Aiton's status will matter too much for it. I think those centers are kind of siloed at center, and it won't really matter much for Sharp and Scoop. But 5,300 with that positional eligibility, yeah, I think he's pretty significantly underowned. I mean, I think Kamara should be way more than 3% owned. I like his flexibility. His minutes don't go anywhere. I don't mind getting Jeremy Grant. I think Portland's the most underowned team of all of these games. I'd like to get to a lot more of Sharp, Aiton, Grant, Denny, Kamara. I'm obviously already getting to Anthony Simons, but
Mhm.
even more so than like just liking them on paper, I like it because it's the 10 o'clock game. If I've got a little bit more of Portland, that's going to allow me to move some things around at 9:30 when I have to get set up for these two games locking. So they're underowned to me. I'd like to have more of them, and I think that helps for flexibility.
Yeah, I think it's probably my favorite team to target for tournaments. And they're running like a tight rotation. Like they're playing their main guys a lot. Last game, Delano Banton played 7 minutes in the first half. You saw Chris Murray play 4 minutes in the second half. But I mean, they're playing those main guys a lot. So assuming this game does stay competitive, yeah, I just think this team is going under owned right now in tournaments. So I think Denny and Shaden Sharp would probably be the two preferred options. But I mean, some of these other rotation players you mentioned, Kamara, I think Jeremy Grant's playable. And then if DeAndre Ayton gets ruled out, like you're going to get this center minute split there with Klingon and with Robert Williams. I think looking at the salaries there, Klingon is 4.5, Rob Williams is 4.2. I think Rob Williams would be a little bit easier to get to because he's got the power forward eligibility. But I think both would definitely be in play. Klingon's a pretty solid point per minute player. I mean, you saw him in 18 minutes against Charlotte put up 35 fancy points. So yeah, if Ayton gets ruled out late, again, I don't think we'll get that news until the first two games lock. Those two become potential values as well.
We're going to summarize it all quickly because we're at the end of the line. Three pay up options: Giannis, AD, LeBron. Who's your preferred choice?
Giannis.
Okay. The next range is going to be 8K to 9,800. Maxi, Trey, Şengün, Curry, Lillard, Amin Thompson. You can only have one.
Um, for tournaments, I think I'll say Maxi. If we're just talking about like point per dollar option, I think it's Amen Thompson.
Okay. Favorite sub $4,500 player. Give you a little bit more wiggle room.
Okay. Favorite
We got a
sub
lot,
45.
we've got this chunk of Eubanks 40% owned, Eric Gordon 20% owned, Pajemski 20, Moody 20, Whitmore 35, Edwards 40. All those guys are within $300 of each other. So I'm curious where your land is your preferred value.
In tournaments, honestly, I think like Ricky Council and Philip Halsey are going overlooked. So those are two guys that I think are definitely going underowned. If we're just talking about like which one I think is like your best point per dollar option, I think it would be probably Cam Whitmore, assuming he plays.
Well, there we go. DK, tell the people where to find you.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter, DK __ DFS, or on YouTube, DK DFS.
Well, there we go. We've reached the end of the line. 4 games up, 4 games down, but this show doesn't end. Wow. Remember when I asked for them to get to 300 likes?
Where
They
are
got
we
to
at?
400.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And I talk bad about you guys, but at least 400 of you are good people. The other 1,900 of you, I could do without. So 1,900 of you need to hit that thumbs up because NBA Live Before Lock is coming up next.
Build your bankroll with Portfolio EV from OddsShopper. Use the mass entry tool to enter hundreds of profitable bets a day with just a couple taps of the finger in the OddsShopper app. And have confidence in knowing the bets you're placing have been profitable long-term by analyzing the historical ROI on every bet from every market with the EV results tool. From there, just create your own custom portfolios, simply add the bet types you want to see each day, and watch the profits roll in. Subscribe today on the OddsShopper app or at OddsShopper.com.
Yep, let's party. Hola and como estes. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock, presented by Stokastic. That is us. Hit that follow if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe button, that would be. And then, of course, follow me over on X at Eric Lindquist. Go follow Stokastic NBA over on X as well. Ryan Nelson wanted to let the people know. That's kind of important in the world here as well because, well, that's where you can get some great information. We're going to be updating injury information here constantly on the site, trying to keep you apprised of everything going on in the NBA streets, along with our projections team. They are very, very important too. But you know what's very important to me on this Tuesday? It's my friend Matt Belman at Fantasy Tips. Matt, out there in the great state of Ohio, national champions. How you doing, my dude?
I'm good. What an intro. How could I not feel good after that? Happy to be here to talk some hoops. It feels like Thursday because that's usually our day, but I'm on a couple days this week, so happy to talk about a nice 4-game slate. Doesn't look like we have that much lingering news.
You say that, but DeAndre Ayton exists, Cam Whitmore exists, and every piece of
That
news on
much.
the 4-game slate definitely matters. It's amplified because there's only so many places you can go. Oh, the places you can go. That's what Dr. Seuss taught me when I was like, what, 6? That's cool.
No, I like the reference. And yeah, I didn't say there were no injuries lingering, just not that many.
People are calling us Belquist. You know what? That's the merger that we needed. It's kind of like, I don't know, Iron Man joining the Avengers, doing the thing, doing the dance, feeling the flow here on a Tuesday. I'm ready to rock. Are you ready to roll?
Yeah, let's get after it.
All right, let's get after it. We do have injury news that is existing. And again, I'm not meaning to besmirch the good name of Matt Belman here right from the get-go, but we do have some pieces that we need to be keeping apprised. And I love this slate because it's different than most, where we have 2.5 hours to be able to react, not just to news, but also to the box scores of these first 2 games. And I'm very curious how you're going to be handling that in 1, 3, 5 lineups. I know you play a more limited number of lineups, all of those good high dollar things. I play some of the smaller stuff, some of the main stuff as well. Playing 150 today because, again, didn't know Greg was going to be off, but we love Greg Ehrenberg. Even if he doesn't love me, that's fine. But we've got Ryan Rupert and DeAndre Ayton. One of those matters. One of them doesn't on the Portland side. And the other piece of news, Cam Whitmore, questionable with an illness, which is amplified with Tari Eason out because they're still managing that injury. So coming off of a awesome win, one of the bright spots on my betting card, having Houston plus 6.5, I definitely look at this Houston side where Cam Whitmore, he matters more than he normally would because of what could unlock in a Jayshawn Tate and a God forbid we play. What are we actually going to do? I think it's just mainly the main 5 guys just get solidified in a major way, even on a back-to-back. But what are you thinking about from an injury perspective here on this slate as it pertains to your lineups?
Yeah, I don't even think, like, in the context of the slate, I get it. Like, Whitmore, he has a role on this slate. But if he's out, I don't think it all of a sudden unlocks some, like, great value. Sure, you can, like, roll the dice on a Jayshawn Tate. Jock Landale already looks better than he did with Steven Adams out, but not excited about those guys. Whitmore himself looks okay. I prefer the value in the later games. And then Ayton, I mean, for me personally, someone playing limited lineups, it just is not that big of a deal for me. If he's out, like, first off, if he's in, I'm not playing him here. If he's out, I like Klingon, but Robert Williams is also in tonight. Klingon's got a minutes cap, and we've got other good centers, particularly cheap guys that I like more. That said, as I've been constructing my lineup, based on the recent news and stuff, I find myself getting to mostly guys in the later games, which means I'll be able to adjust if Ayton out and Klingon looks better than I think, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I want to pay attention to with Ayton because I think there's a world where I might want to play him if he's in. I think that's kind of the most appealing part because I think Simons is already pulling quite a bit of ownership, even if it's not as much as we have expected for his optimal percentage, 29% ownership, optimal rate around 33.25% of the time. So it's definitely going to be a fun one to pay attention to from a late swap perspective. I also think Denny Avdia, I mean, you brought it up before, you're getting limited minutes out of Klingon. So even though he's north of like a 20% total rebound rate, he's been an absolute monster on the boards. He's only going out there for like 21, 22 minutes as a potential upside for it. Robert Williams behind 21 minutes, 21 minutes for him. So like 42 minutes there, but we've seen some small ball Denny, and I think 7,200 for him. That's the real sneaky one on the Portland side that I want to be paying attention to. And I don't really want to get stuck with 7,200 Denny Avdia in the event that you get all of those centers in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. He certainly looks better with Ayton out. And Klingon is going to look good if Ayton's out. So I don't mean to like besmirch that because at only 4,500, he already projects decently. So I get it. I do think that the Ayton news is much more important than the Whitmore news.
Yeah, Donovan Klingon. Well, the Whitmore news is interesting just if we get one piece. I think Jayshawn Tate is probably that one piece that I'm probably going to be paying attention to the most on the Houston side from a value perspective. He's just sitting at 3,100, and yesterday he played all of 5 minutes. I'm not going to say that that was planned. It just had to do with Dylan Brooks was shooting inferno well. Amin Thompson always plays 40-plus minutes here, but now you're replacing 27 minutes, 25 minutes that you would have been looking at for Tari Eason in this spot. Played 25 yesterday. Somebody's got to pick it up to some extent, and on a back-to-back against Atlanta, I think this is one of those spots where if you can rotate in a little bit of Jayshawn Tate, I'll at least be interested with it, but we'll get into the ins and outs of that. Somebody asking if I did coke over in the YouTube chat. Have you never watched me on a show before? I think that's just kind of where I live my life, as though I'm on like, I don't know, it's just the natural me. I can't help it. I don't need substance enhancements in order to be this way. I was born this way. I think that's what Lady Gaga said.
Respect it.
I think my wife hates it from time to time.
Yeah, maybe from time to time, but clearly she doesn't hate it.
My co-hosts never hate it, though, right? You, Matt Belman, Matt Kacheski, nobody hates it.
I've never seen you get into a kerfuffle with any of those guys.
Let's start breaking this slate down a little bit more in depth, shall we? We talked about the injury news. Hit that like button if you would, as we get things rocking. We got Jordan Klein behind the virtual glass. He's going to be sharing all of the greatness that is the Sims tool here at Stokastic. Obviously, we got done with the promo code BINK. Thank you guys for making that a great success and jumping on in and unlocking the power of the Sims tool here for 20% off any single sport package that was. That is now officially done, Ski, but hopefully you took advantage in the NFL or NBA streets and you're able to play along with us over at home as we build out our lineups. But let's start with some of the more popular mid-range pieces, if you will. We've got ourselves, is it mid-range? It's Amin Thompson at 8K, but point guard, small forward is great eligibility. He's got the highest minutes projection out of anybody that I've got on this slate. He just goes out and does everything on a floor except for shoot threes. The stocks are out of control. The defense is out of control. I'm going to ask you about him specifically first. If you're building out one lineup, does Amin Thompson make the cut?
Yeah, I think he looks like one of, if not the best overall play on the slate. You get maybe a little sticker shock playing him at 8K, but why at this point? He's filling up the stat sheet on a nightly basis. Couldn't ask for a better spot. He plays big minutes every night, even on back-to-backs. No Tari Eason, still no Jabari Smith. Doesn't hurt that cause. Great matchup. He's going to be crazy high owned, which he wasn't last night, which was why he was such a good play last night, and it's a different sort of play tonight. But he's a really good play tonight also because he projects so well. There's not the opportunity cost that there normally is with 8K players. There just is a dearth of them this evening. So he looks particularly strong for me. One of the best plays on the slate.
Yeah, he's really tough to get away from, I think, even in one lineup, purely because I think as you go in single entry, he's going to be like 65, 70% owned. And I look at other players in the range, and we can go to the expensive side first for the popular plays. Giannis Antetokounmpo is 11-7, but we're going back into Portland, where I think all of our minds go towards Dame Lillard, a little bit of a homecoming, if you will. He's definitely going to be the road guy that everybody's cheering for. I don't think that there's any ill will. It was a mutual breakup of sorts. And I think overall it was probably better for both teams to be parting ways. But Giannis is sitting there at 11-7. We have Anthony Davis coming off of an evisceration of Mark Williams' soul. Your soul is mine, like Shang Tsung. 10-5 here for him. And LeBron James at 10K. I think the expensive guys, yeah, I like AD. I think he's somebody that's going to be mixing into quite a few of my lineups out of my 150. Currently pulling around 30% ownership, but like, I don't think LeBron's a must-have. I really don't think Giannis is a must-have at 11-7 unless we get some major influx of value. Maybe Cam Whitmore opens that up with some Jayshawn Tate. We got ourselves Tyrese Maxey. He's about appropriately owned. Like, I look at everything else here and it's like, I don't see how I don't just play point guard, small forward when he's the only one sitting at 8K and above who is at small forward, who has small forward eligibility. And I think that's kind of like the tiebreaker for me is like, man, small forward is a dusty position as it is. Why not just click on Amen Thompson there, move on with your life? And if you want to get to one or a couple of these other pieces, you can do it. But like, I just think he unlocks so much more in your lineup as opposed to going up to some of those top studs.
I agree with everything you said, except for playing Amen Thompson doesn't prohibit you from getting to one or two of those other guys. Like,
right.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that there are certainly paths to roster construction where like you play Giannis and AD and, whoever else, and you don't play Amen Thompson, but I'm not playing that route. I can get different elsewhere. And again, I think we're on the same page. He just looks so good. If you were only point guard eligible, it might be a different story, but the small forward eligibility just puts it over the top.
Yeah, it's huge. When you're hand building, it's kind of a huge thing in single entry to be able to click on him at small forward. Again, utilizing the Sims tool, it's going to do a lot of that heavy labor for you. I don't have to think about it as much. I'm not worried about it nearly as much. But over on FanDuel, and I want to take a little bit of a drive over there for the people because I think this is a really good FanDuel slate. You get one extra position or one more player in there, a 9-person lineup, and you only get one center spot to rule them all and one center spot to find them. I think there's something to be said about getting away from some of the ownership on an Alperen Şengün. Anthony Davis has power forward eligibility over there. And then you've got Drew Eubanks. You've got Donovan Clingan, where that could look really good at 4,400, especially knowing what his block upside is, even in like 22 minutes. I look at FanDuel, and I want to just ask you this, because I know that you're playing over on DraftKings today, as you normally are, but we've got 47% ownership coming in on Giannis. I think I would be considerably underweight to that on the back-to-back today. It feels like I'm really anti-Giannis. I'm not that much over on DK at 24%, but if I were playing FanDuel today, unless we got some massive influx of value, he's power forward only, nearly 12K. What do you think about him over on FanDuel for those people?
I like him less. More expensive, less position flexibility. You've got guys like AD who are also power forward eligible, so I'm right with you. He still can easily and is projected to have the highest score on the slate. So there's something to that. And if more value comes out, then it becomes harder and harder to get away from him. But until that happens, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Sims tool. Look what it's doing right now on your screen. And I think that's something that I should probably start referencing more and more as I built out FanDuel lineups before this show. Because again, I want to be a good host and give everybody the right information, but it's always on your screen right in front of you too. You can see the exposure. 18% Giannis that's coming in right now over on FanDuel out of the top 150 lineups, negative 18% leverage there. We're almost half the field underweight. And I mean, again, 47% ownership he's currently got coming in. We have the pool ownership coming in around 36%. So yeah, I mean, 47% ownership. It's like nearly 1/3 of the ownership we have him in lineups. He's probably my least favorite play relative to ownership on the FanDuel slate, which is pretty wild to say about Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah, no, it makes sense though because of pricing, etc.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting point that was coming up in the Sims. Obviously, we've got Anthony Davis there. He's showing up quite a bit. It's so much easier to land on him with that power forward eligibility on FanDuel. And then we've got a couple of these guys that we can be intermixing into lineups. We already got Zachary Risachet ruled out. I do want to see what that Atlanta starting lineup ends up being. I think we all assume it's going to be Trae Young, Daniels, Krejci, Nance, Okongwu, because that's what they did Nance's first game back. But I would love confirmation on that because there's nothing that says that they can't mix that up. Larry Nance's hand didn't look exactly splendid by any means. He sat out yesterday. They basically punted that Minnesota game, got a little eerily close towards the end, a little bit closer than I would like as a Minnesota fan, but they got the job done. I think today you get that normal starting lineup back, including Larry Nance as opposed to Jalen Johnson. But anything else you want to bring up on the FanDuel side? Because I think the ownership's about appropriate on everybody else that's popular. Fred VanVleet pulling around 41% ownership. Amon Thompson, he's a little less popular than on DK, but he's 8,800 now. Shooting guard, small forward eligibility still got him mixing into lineups. And Alperen Şengün, he's the chalk of the center position. We still have him undervalued there at 45%, but you got to remember that that's not taking into account DeAndre Ayton status. And if he ends up out, I think definitely getting onto some Klingon where there's only that one center spot utilizing over on FanDuel feels like kind of the sharp way to go about your late swaps.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't have much more to add on FanDuel. It doesn't look that much drastically different than DK to me.
Yep, I'm completely with you. Let's get back over to DK, though, for the people. Smash that like button, too. I see 586 likes. That is a gigantic number right from the get-go. And obviously, Matt Belman filling in admirably last second here for the people. We appreciate it. You appreciate it. Let's continue on. Let's get to some tournament plays, if you will. Getting ourselves to a couple of off the beaten path, if you will. And I want to start with Atlanta specifically. We got Trae Young back into the mix. And what if I told you that Trae Young was going to end up being extremely low owned at 4% on today's slate at 9,500? Yes, it's a hamstring injury. Yes, it's Houston on the other side, which doesn't inspire a ton of confidence, knowing that your switching partners off of Fred VanVleet are Dylan Brooks and Amon Thompson, the 6'7" god that is Amon Thompson. But Trae Young could immediately walk into 35, 36 minutes. Wouldn't shock me whatsoever. Our minutes projection on him is a little bit lower on that, as it should be, but he had played 38, 39, 40 minutes here. That was like 3 days ago. So I think he should be good to get back to that normal workload in a lot of scenarios. Other than the matchup, I can't think of a lot of reasons I wouldn't want to play Trae Young without Jalen Johnson here on the floor. Is he somebody that you're considering in one lineup, or is it just too much to try to chew off considering he's optimal, only around 9-10% of the time?
Yeah, I'm good on that. Like, I get it. And I never mind the idea of getting contrarian and spend up options, but he's just so low on my pecking order of point guards here. I'd rather play Maxey, who's very similarly priced. I'd rather play Curry, who is much cheaper. I'd obviously rather play Dame, who is much cheaper and projects for basically the same exact amount of fantasy points. So, yeah, I just think there's other spots I'm willing to get different with. It's Trae Young. He can always drop 60, regardless of the matchup. He's got that upside, but this is not the spot where I'm not going to pay to see it personally.
He had 11 turnovers last game against Toronto. Is that real life?
Yeah, he has really struggled with that recently. And the game before that against the Knicks, I'm pretty sure he was bad with that.
So insane. I mean, it's just weird to look at in a sheet. It's bright red for me. That generally means something bad happened. But I think the rest of the Atlanta team is interesting because this is earlier than you're getting that Portland news. The Golden State starting lineup, which is always in flux. I mean, it's just a stone cold disaster trying to figure out anything there. I think we get the Curry, Hield, Peyton, Wiggins, Trace Jackson Davis, starting lineup, but I don't think anybody's minutes are guaranteed outside of Curry and Wiggins. Everybody else is kind of like, hey, who's got the hot hand? Who's knocking down shots? And it's Utah on the other side. But like, I kind of look at Atlanta as one of those teams where DeAndre Hunter, what do you think about him specifically? Because he is that guy. If I'm trying to get away from Amon Thompson, not trying to get away from him that much, but 5,700 has the small forward eligibility, coming in a little bit under-owned in the Sims tool here as well. What do you think about him specifically, or anybody else on Atlanta you're contemplating for your one lineup?
I'm good on him. I mean, he's been a good scorer off the bench, but like that's it. He's not doing anything else. And now you have Trae Young back. I'm good on Hunter. I'm good on anyone else from Atlanta. They're just priced out for me. I mean, again, I'm not saying it's a 4-game slate. So if you're multi-entering, I wouldn't like cross these guys out, but none of them look good from like a one lineup perspective at all. So yeah, that's how I see it at least.
So what team do you see yourself being the most interested in on this slate? Because we have Houston, we have just Amon Thompson and Cam Whitmore pulling ownership right now. On the Utah side, it's basically Drew Eubanks and Isaiah Collier. Milwaukee, Dame and Giannis is your spend ups, but what are you kind of planning to do? Is there a team that you see yourself getting to a little bit more, a little bit less of relative to the field right now?
It's really everyone but Atlanta for me. And Houston. Actually, I'm not playing much of the early two games, and that's not because like I'm waiting for news. I just think the best plays are the late games. So Eubanks from Utah, obviously. I don't really love anyone else from Utah, but we'll get there. Golden State, I like a bunch of pieces. The spend up options, I like the cheap guys. Milwaukee, obviously, I like Dame and Giannis, but also Bobby Portis being out, I think opens the door for guys like Gary Trent. Um, and then, yeah, like I mentioned, I think the Golden State cheat guys look really, really good here. So I would say if there was one team I'm going to get the most of, it's Golden State.
Interesting. All right, Golden State. That's kind of what we're here for, is talking through some of those. Brandon Pajemski played pretty darn well last time out. Played a little bit more than I was expecting. 24 minutes. Had 17, 3 and 5. Felt pretty good watching him out on the floor, and seemed as though he had a little bit more rapport going with Steph Curry than you had from Dennis Schroeder, who they went out of their way to go get. Dennis Schroeder limited to just 22 minutes against his former team, the Lakers. Some weird stuff going on with that, and then $1,000 difference. You are seeing Brandon Pajemski pulling quite a bit of ownership here today, but still 3,900. As it stands right now, he's probably this guy's sub 4K I have the most of. Justin Edwards is pulling a ton of ownership at 3,800, and I'm not super confident in here. I do want to see that starting lineup. I'm very curious who ends up being the fourth starter. I think we all assume Maxi Gordon-Oubre and Yabusele is coming down the pipeline, but it could be Ricky Council, could be Justin Edwards. That would definitely solidify my interest in Justin Edwards, but I don't have any as it stands right now if he's going to be coming off the bench. Feel like it's a little thin, even against the Lakers. But is there anything sub 4K that you've got your eye on for this slate? Because we're still waiting on the Whitmore news. And Brandon Pajemski, I think, from the Golden State side, probably somebody of interest based on what you just said.
I got four guys I like for under 4K. Pajemski, number one. He's way too cheap. Great spot. Guards destroy Utah. He's just a guy that can do it all. And he's under 4K. He's projecting for ownership, but not like enough ownership where I'm worried about it. Moses Moody, playing good ball right now. He's 3,900. I can't decide who I like more between him and Gary Trent, who I'll talk about after the third Golden State guy I like. The last Golden State guy I like that's risky is Quentin Post. Tons of coach speak about him. He's played more minutes in 4 consecutive games. He's the stretch 5, or the prototype of the stretch 5 they've been looking for. He's not going to pull a lot of ownership because Eubanks is going to be chalky and there's other good center options. I do see he's gaining more steam throughout the day, now projected for like 10.5%. I'm not worried about it. I think he's a really good play at 3,400. I like all three of those guys. And then I said, I like Gary Trent. I wish Middleton were out, but Bobby Portis being out has to do something. How do you see Moses Moody versus Gary Trent? They project for about the same.
Well, people were talking about hard drugs before. I might not be the person on them right now, which is kind of fun. I love it. No, it's in a nice way. It's in a nice way. Moses Moody versus Gary Trent. Is that there Quentin Post?
Yeah, and you got to think like that on 4-game slates. You know what I mean? Those are the decision
totally.
points. But yeah, so what do you think?
Quentin Post is pulling ownership as it stands right now, 10%, which isn't a lot, but it's a lot for Quentin Post. And
I liked him a lot more at 4%.
Yeah, he was a lot more fun at 4%, but it's going to be relative to what happens with Whitmore. I think Whitmore is going to be somebody that people click into their lineups if he's good to go. He definitely gives them ammunition off the bench, north of 26% usage this season. It's Atlanta on the other side. It also was an illness. I think he should be good to walk into 20-plus minutes right from the get-go. And, who's to say Dylan Brooks doesn't go out and shoot Inferno, just literally NBA Jam heat check. He's on fire. Weirdness going on yesterday. So Cam Whitmore, with no Tari Eason, with no Jabari Smith out there, it definitely makes sense to get to embrace some of that chalk. But among some of the sub 4K guys, I think Moses Moody's a little bit overowned because you just never know. Moses Moody needs to get there early in rotations. If he's not knocking down shots, he's going to be basically useless to you. God, it's hard. I kind of think that Quentin Post is appropriately owned now, whereas, if he had been 4 or 5%, maybe I would have had a little bit more interest there. What do you think about Jock Landale, considering it is a back-to-back here for Alperen Şengün? And we did get news that Steven Adams is going to be out. I think that shores up, whereas, Jock Landale doesn't always end up seeing the floor in some of these spots. I think if I'm trying to get really different at center in a tournament, he's kind of the guy I've got my eye on, seeing what ends up happening with his ownership as we get closer to lock. If you also get Cam Whitmore ruled out, it's just another body that they can't necessarily put on the floor. Now, he's backing up Alperen Şengün almost in its entirety, but 34 minutes of Şengün kind of are on the higher end. Atlanta blowout, definitely a potential, although the spread doesn't indicate that. If you got like 32 and 16 out of Şengün and then over to Jock Landale, I think that's at least interesting. If Whitmore's out, I think there's a lot of ways where maybe Jeff Green ends up in some of the smaller ball lineups, but like, I think Landale's at least interesting at the current ownership. I think I would rather click on him than Quentin Post at their current ownerships right now.
I get that. I don't think they're like that different of plays. I think that the thing that's intriguing about Post, which is not just to me, but to the field, which is why he's gaining steam, there's a lot more unknown with him and Jock Landale. Like, we know what Jock Landale is. Like, he's going to back up Şengün here. He's going to play 12 to 15 minutes maybe. Steven Adams was in play before he got rolled out. I think Landale's a similar play, even a little bit cheaper. Post, I think, has a DNP more in his cards than Landale does, but I think his upside's higher. So I get it. I still prefer Post, though.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, we'll continue talking and discussing through things because holy crap, we're halfway through the show already. Where does the time go? And especially because we're just sitting here waiting for Cam Whitmore news. What are we doing with our lives when we're just sitting around waiting for Cam Whitmore?
So I take it if Whitmore's in, though, you think he's a better play than like Moody and Gary Trent?
By a mile, yeah.
So, but from what I took on Moody, you think Trent's a better play than Moody?
Yes. I don't have a lot of Gary Trent right now, though. I'm just looking through my lineups. Again, I'm playing 150 today. I think my lineups are definitely going to change based on that. I mean, I would rather play Gui Santos than Gary Trent, I think.
Okay. So the Portis injury doesn't really do much for you at all. It just kind of boosts the starters.
Yeah, a little bit more to the starters. I think it's so hard because my mind always goes, I mean, I've been doing this for a long, long time. And you think about Terrence Ross. He's always the first example that comes to my head on shows. T. Ross either comes out and has a great first stint, and you know that you need him to win a tournament, or he goes completely, shits the bed, absolutely nothing out of him. You're just sitting there with a big fat goose egg, and you kind of know immediately. I feel like that's Gary Trent right now at lower ownership on a 4-game slate. I feel like that's also a little bit of everybody on this slate. Like Justin Edwards, it's a little bit of the same thing. I mean, you go through some of his rates, a little bit more, not as scoring dependent because he has a decent enough rebound rate to add stuff, but does absolutely nothing in terms of distribution and playmaking for anybody else, and doesn't really add a ton. He's had some luck bach steals games here of late. 3-2-1. It's been a little bit, I'm not going to say that he's been drastically outperforming some of his recent box scores, but like, let me just tell you, that is ownership coming in purely because of what he's done the last few. I don't think it's necessarily because of his minutes allotment here, and he is very scoring dependent. That's where I think Podziemski at 3,900 is probably like the most secure of everybody, because we have such a catalog on like his assist rate being decent enough side by side Steph Curry to like click on him and know that we're getting something that isn't purely scoring dependent. And I always like that. Now, that's coming with more ownership now for a reason, but like, you don't have to get that much different and that much off the beaten path. Like, I'm looking to do with like one or two guys. Like, again, Jock Landale, that is way off the beaten path. So there's guys like that I'm a little bit more interested in trying to find paths to. I don't feel like playing 40% Justin Edwards is my bag, baby, by Austin Powers.
I'm totally good on Justin Edwards here. I'd rather just wait for news or play any of the guys we talked about over him personally.
And then if I am going to get a guy who's more scoring dependent, might as well be Cam Whitmore, who shoots it at a 26% usage clip. I mean, what in the world?
Yeah, agreed. And then, to kind of flip the script a little bit, talked about a couple of these cheap Warriors. You asked me about them. I like them. What about the expensive Warriors? Steph Curry's in an amazing spot here. Andrew Wiggins, like, I don't think these guys are going to get a lot of ownership, and there's blowout risk, but like this is such a good get right spot for Golden State. And I think you can really kind of flip the bill by playing those guys instead of the cheap guys or playing them together.
Yeah, let's do this. So we'll pull up the Golden State one. We'll talk through that. We got the normal starting five here from the Rockets. We did not get the news that we're looking for here from the Rockets yet. So Cam Whitmore, please let us know. And let's go through Golden State. Then I'm going to cover Super Chats. Then we're going to talk Portfolio EV. And then we'll do Nuke of the Night. This should go pretty darn quickly. So I'm just giving Jordan Klein a little bit of the heads up of where my mind is at, because I feel like I'm in the quantum realm right now. Just change the lighting over here too. I think that's might be why I'm, optimally going faster. But we got ourselves Steph Curry pulling around 20% ownership. Pajemski, the most popular play on the slate from the Golden State side, right around a quarter of lineups. I think that's about appropriate. But once again, I feel better clicking on him than I do some of these other cheapies that are pulling ownership, especially the Edwards piece. I'm willing to die on the hill that Edwards is more scoring dependent than what that ownership is saying to us. Yes, he's getting a crack in the rotation, no doubt about it, but we'll see what ends up happening coming to fruition there. Quentin Post, we've talked about him ad nauseum. And Moses Moody, definitely overowned, but shooting guard, small forward. I get why people are getting there. It probably will be something where I'm hoping Portland News drives a little bit of the ownership that I have going to Moody right now away from Moody. Hopefully in the form of a Donovan Clingan, hopefully in the form of maybe something else that breaks unexpectedly. And then brought it up before. I mean, Buddy Hield, nobody wants to play. We know how scoring dependent he is, but it could always be a Buddy Hield 5-6 threes night. And Gui Santos, 4,100. It seems as though we're just not going to see Lindy Waters, even though Lindy Waters was like starting for this team. I don't know what to make of it. Everything I said about Edwards doesn't matter. He's starting tonight. Holy shit. Well, goody. This is fun. You know what else is fun is Portfolio EV. We have 7 days that you guys can sign up over at Portfolio EV right now. What is that, you ask? Head to OddsShopper.com. Check out 7 days, 7-day trial down at the video description box below. You get an opportunity to see exactly what G. Ehrenberg DFS, my buddy Greg Ehrenberg on these shows, is talking about all the time. What ND_Joyce is throwing out there, as well as Lofty doing some great content as well, showing you with his picket slips exactly what Portfolio EV can do for you. And it doesn't matter if you're in Florida, doesn't matter if you're in Maine, doesn't matter if you're in Oregon or California or one of these one book, or maybe you have to go to Rebet Fliff. We have everybody covered. You can sign up, get that 7-day free trial, and hey, you don't enjoy it, no harm, but I guarantee you'll see the results and see the results of others over on X. Transparent betting right in front of your face from Portfolio EV. That is what it's all about. And you head to the video description box below, sign up, take advantage. Would love to see you guys getting those same results that they are getting on a day in, day out basis. Now, it's not every day that you're going to be winning betting. I think most people who have done this forever. What is that Atlanta lineup? What is that Atlanta lineup? Change the way you bet. Portfolio EV by OddsShopper.
Wow. Oh, wow.
What?
He played a bunch last night, I feel like, too.
All right. Well, we got 24 minutes. I'm going to get to the super chats here and let everything update, because holy mother of Jeezel Pete's. Jeezel Pete's. I don't know what that means.
I think he's center only.
Conscious, welcome to Team Stokastic. Love to see you. Chris Williams gifted 5 subs. You're the best, man. You know who's not? The Atlanta Hawks. Michael Sirwood, $2. FanDuel, single entry per position. Best chalk plus low owned. Might be the same guy in this gay fellow. Gay. I think it's pronounced gay. I don't know. It's Gaye?
I think it's gay.
I think it's gay too. Anyway, somebody's going to clip that. Gabby, TOPR, $1.99. With Golden State guys trading the process for Butler. I know. How are we supposed to account for that? I don't know. Yesterday, I had 58, or what I have, 55% Bogdanovich, 28% Horford. It sucked. Everything sucks. Yeah, everybody knows who Krejci is. Player picks him. That's not what I'm talking about. But Guy, is it pronounced Guy? Is that what we're saying?
Something like that. Yeah. He's only center eligible.
Okay, normal voice, please. All right, we're back. Deep Thoughts with Eric Lindquist. Did you know that his name is Guy? Mohammed Guy. Your play of the day. He's going to be massive chalk. He's 3K, man.
I don't know. Is he, though? He's starting at power forward, and he's only center eligible.
I don't care. I'm going to play a lot of him. Let's pull
I
up some
agree.
rates, shall we? I think that that's the best way to do it rather than me just having a spaz attack on stream. I don't know. Some people would probably enjoy me having a spaz attack on stream. Guys, check out
3Ks.
Portfolio EV down at the link below. It's really great. I'm serious. I'm stalling because I need to get everything updated.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how good
You
he's
could
gonna
have given
look.
me 1,000 guesses on the starting lineup. 1,000 guesses. Well, actually, it's just one guy. I guess I would have just been rotating a different dude in for Larry Nance. He would have probably been like the last one, but we did see some interesting rotations from him yesterday. Let me show you the ways. Minnesota won 192. Minnesota played awful in that second half for what it's worth, but Guy, as we shall call him here for the time being, ended up closing out that game, played all the way up till the 21-second mark, checked in at the 9:35 mark, checked in at the 6:17 mark as well, came alongside DeAndre Hunter, Garrison Matthews, who checked in just before him, and then he checked in before Clint Capella. He checked in before Clint Capella. Do we have Cam Whitmore news either? What is going on?
Doesn't it? Oh, I was going to ask you this about Whitmore. So I agree with you that like it's an illness. So if he's in, he shouldn't have any limitations. But don't you think it's a little bit eerie that like he's still questionable and like it's an illness? So maybe, well, not maybe, he's likely not feeling 100%. Otherwise, why would he still be questionable?
Yeah, dude, this is so weird. I'm pulling it up here. There's always got to be the one good-natured person who's like, potentially, this is going to come down so to the wire. We have 21 minutes before lock, and I swear to God, that news is definitely coming like 3
Doesn't
minutes
Guy
before
feel
lock.
like a big trap? Gay
No.
or Guy feels, to me, he does. He's playing power forward. He's only center eligible. Like, that's a bad combo. Playing power forward, but only center eligible. Like, he's going to be on the court with Okongwu or Capella. Like, he's 3K. I get it. But, man, what I think this really does is lower posts ownership.
Well, Guy's played all of 30 minutes in the NBA so far. He has a 0.6 DraftKings points per minute rate. So I get what you're saying, but 30 minutes doesn't really inform anything for us. I mean, the closest comp I can have is that we basically just got a 3K Jericho Sims that just entered the chat. Like, I think that's the best way I can describe it.
I'm good on that. I'm with you. I think there's more unknown there because again, we know who Sims is, but I think that's likely what it is. And I'm good there. I'd rather take a shot on post.
From pillar to post. I apologize to my family. Michael Sirwood, $2. Yeah, FanDuel single entry per position, best chalk and low owned. I'm going to rerun some stuff, and then I will make sure that I answer that one. Jordan Klein, hold me accountable to that. Gabby, yeah, watch out, guys. Golden State guys, trade in the process for Butler. Yes, very aware of that here as well. Thank you so much for the super chat. It is so
Wait, where
hard
is that like
to account
confirmed?
for
So
that.
they've traded for Butler?
No. Just saying that it's in the process. They're like having discussions.
Yeah,
So
so I'm not
so
playing
everybody.
guys on Golden State because of that. Like
Correct.
there's not a trade in the process. They're talking about potentially making a trade, which they've been doing on and off for months.
Belman is that guy, and Eric is not a scratch golfer. I've never seen a bigger lie in the history of the chat than that. Jordan Klein, I can hit a golf ball. It's confirmed. Go F yourself, San Diego. Anyway, let's
Matt's still the guy, but you can hit a golf ball too. All right, I'm off.
Thank you. You didn't back me up with very much confidence. I didn't hear a lot of vigor in your voice. One more time. One more time for the people in the back.
Oh God, I was on mute and I didn't even realize it. That's my fault.
No, Jordan Klein is the person I'm asking for. Jordan Klein.
What do you need? No.
I just need you to tell me that I'm special and you love me.
You're fantastic. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. That's what I'm trying to
Dylan Brooks.
do. What?
Dylan Brooks. I'm asking you, Dylan Brooks. Do you have a take?
Oh my God, do I have a Dylan Brooks take? He shot the ball unsustainably well yesterday. I think that's the main take. But the other one is that his minutes are definitely solidified, even more so if you get Cam Whitmore out. How do we not have Cam Whitmore news? Let's do this. Nuke of the night. Let's click the button, give ourselves a little bit of a breather. I need a breather myself, and maybe a smoke. That was the version that I was not expecting to see, where my PP goes bye-bye. Anyway, let's get ourselves going, Matt. It is time to give the people your favorite lower-owned tournament option here for this evening. Who is going to make everybody all the money? Your nuke of the night.
He's not crazy low owned, but it's a 4-game slate, so we'll take it. He's under 30. Easy one for me here. Now, I've missed a bunch of these, so, play this at your own risk, but easy Anthony Simons for me. Shoot point guard and shooting guard eligible, 6,100. Everyone talks about Dame going back to Portland, and I love that. But I love Simons in this spot going up against Dame, who they are still really tight. Dame was his mentor. We saw Simons ball out in Milwaukee last time they played. I think he continues to play 35 plus minutes. I love Simons here. I will 100% be playing him.
Yeah, I'm playing so much Justin Edwards now. This is just getting insane. And obviously the Cam Whitmore thing is going to change it potentially here. And I would just say Jayshawn Tate, nuke of the night at 3,100. I think that would be the guy who I would want to get to. But I want to pay attention to news throughout the entire evening. We get 2.5 hours to be able to react to how our lineups are doing. And I think Portland is probably the most intriguing tournament team on this slate to me, because we just don't know what we're going to get out of that side of the basketball. And with DeAndre Ayton, if people don't want to play DeAndre Ayton if he's in, I'm going to make him nuke of the night. And if he sits, I'm obviously going to make Donovan Clingan / Robert Williams my nuke of the night. We expect Clingan to be starting. I'm not going to give him like crazy amount of minutes. He's still going to be around that 22 number, because it's just hard to project him for more right now as he's working back. But I do think Robert Williams at 4,200 would be interesting. He's completely out of play if Ayton is in. So it's an Ayton / Clingan / Robert Williams banger. Plus, Milwaukee really doesn't like to rebound the ball. They are the worst team in terms of offensive rebound percentage, which means defensive rebound percentage, where you can really rack them up if you're a Donovan Clingan. That's going to be the easiest to come by here. 2% worse than the next worst team there in Washington. That is how bad Milwaukee is in rebounding the basketball on that side. And then, well, for whatever reason, they go and just completely clean up the glass on the defensive side. So it's weird, but I suppose Doc Rivers, he's a coward, the likes of which this world's never seen before. And he doesn't want people to get out in transition against him, I suppose. So they get back faster, if you will. Donovan Clingan, Ayton, Robert Williams, some combination, your nukes, plural, of the night. Pay close attention to the news. We'll obviously have the updates, and we have the updates in now. Did you get a sim in here, Jordan Klein? Because I just started running another one here on my end.
I'm in the same boat as you. It's running currently as well.
Trade Jordan, stop it. Eric Nuke and the Knights have been underwhelming lately. I give you Ty Jerome on Friday. Ty Jerome, 47 ball at sub 5% ownership. What do you want from me? Are you not entertained? I'm more on.
Man, I'm really struggling with Cam Whitmore. I'm worried about this illness. Like, if he actually does play, like, why is he so? I don't get it.
This is so absurd. 14 minutes. I have Cam Whitmore just pulled up on Twitter. Decaf, Eric, never. It's delicious. Straight up cold brew. It's delicious. All right. Let's start combing through the desert. We're combing the desert.
Yeah, I got a good one for you. I just got asked. 2 for 2. You're the man with these. Curry and Wiggins, or Giannis and Pajemski?
Well, they're both late, so that makes me happy. The Wiggins piece. How much Wiggins do I actually have tonight? I can't imagine it's a lot. Yeah, I don't have a ton of Wiggins. I mean, it's probably Giannis Pajemski, but I mean, we're talking a major difference in ownership. Steph pulling right around, that 20-ish number here in my and Wiggins currently sitting with 11.5% ownership in our last run. So it's just a world of difference here. Dude, with every second that goes by, Jayshawn Tate gets closer to being jammed by me.
I wish he were just good, even when he played, is the thing.
He is bad. He's very bad, but we have him projected for like 11.5 here. I mean, he would go from 14 minutes to blank minutes if you knew that Cam Whitmore was out.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh man, they're really making us sweat. All right, I got to go back to FanDuel and give the people the best value plays and low owned plays. So I'm going to give you one of each of them here as we're combing through everything here. Again, lots of news coming in. Can't believe this is a 4-game slate. The last 15 minutes have been straight up on steroids.
Yeah, agreed.
Good to pump you up. A little bit of that. He had sex with his housekeeper. Just want everybody to know that. It's an important factoid. All right. Got it pulled up here. Got another sim ran here for you on the FanDuel side. My stalling is not very good today. I apologize. But here we are at point guard. Here we go. By position. Tyrese Maxey, going to be the guy that I want you to get to the most there. Low owned. Well, Fred VanVleet, actually, I have more of than Tyrese Maxey. That is good to know. Like the Colin Sexton piece on FanDuel, 24% ownership, nothing crazy there. Shooting guard, it is Amin Thompson. Lower owned piece that I like over there. Austin Reeves, somebody who's showing up in the Sims a little bit more for me at small forward. Andrew Wiggins, more popular there, 6,600. I think that's just fine. I wanted to list the guy off that wasn't Amin Thompson there. Cam Whitmore right now, but man, that could definitely change here in 11 minutes. We have a power forward, Giannis Antetokounmpo. He is definitely going to be more accessible now that we got Edwards. Although on FanDuel, Edwards, a lot more expensive there at 4,100 relative, but still 30% ownership for him. He's the guy at power forward outside of Giannis, second most popular for me. Yabusele, going to be an interesting one for the power forward people. And at center, Şengün, the most popular. I knew he would be, but want to have some lineups reserved for Mr. Klingon over on FanDuel with that block rate. Thank you so much for the super chat. Cool. Man, this is so hard to figure out what to do. There's a part of me that wants to go into the Sims and just change the projection on Jae'Sean Tate and get to a little bit, just because you can't go back. We can't go back. It's like Lost. Once they're on the island, spoiler alert, they get off the island. But Whitmore, man, he's pulling 38% ownership. How much ownership do you think Tate pulls at lock if we still don't know that news? Like 1% no matter what?
Yeah, I mean, the more time goes by, the more I'm leery of Whitmore. Although, the more time that goes by, the lower Whitmore is going to be owned also.
So here's kind of the way that I'm going to combat this, because it's hard. I'm playing 150. I know a lot of you are playing 150. It's 10 minutes before lock. I want to stay on the pre-contest sim page and just be able to, on a dime, change the projection on Cam Whitmore and Jae'Sean Tate. You can basically just go team controls. You can basically X out the other teams. You can also just sort by the team. I think that's easier on this kind of a slate because almost every single player shows up on that first page. If you do the rows by 100, you have 40 players from the other section that end up jumping over there. I'm just going to have it pulled up and ready to rock so that I can run a sim exactly the way that I want to on that pre-contest simulation, because I don't think you're going to get a change that extreme in terms of the ownership between Whitmore, but you could have 38% of the field with a dead Cam Whitmore at lock if things hold right now. This is kind of the most down to the wire we've been on a live before lock for a chalk piece in a long time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is NBA DFS at its finest, I feel like.
I hope Freak gets ruled and Dame goes mega ape. Yeah, no, that's definitely something that I contemplated from a betting perspective, where you just blindly take some Dame Lillard overs and see what happens, because, wouldn't hurt to have that go down and give him 40 shots.
What'd he say?
Oh, he just said that I hope he gets ruled out after lock, like Giannis get ruled out after lock. They just have Middleton and Lillard go out and try to win a basketball game for them tonight. I'm not saying it's a 0% chance, but it's very, very unlikely now that he's been probable in the injury report. Shane Daly, $2. Does Gee starting solidify Capella 20 plus minutes? It's a good point. Capella's interesting. So. Capella's interesting. We have, for his minutes projection right now, I mean, Capella's one of those interesting tournament darts yesterday. What do you have? 15 rebounds, but Okongwu didn't play exactly all that well. Plus, with Trae Young out there now to distribute, there's at least a chance that Okongwu gets a lot better looks than he got from this Mitchell fellow that played 100% of last night. That was the one good thing about the slate. Everything else was trash. Announcement going to come 1 minute after lock. Yeah, that's usually the way it goes. Capella going to bang out. Yeah, I wouldn't be completely surprised, especially if he gets to go up against Jock Landale. It's kind of like from Team America. Matt Damon.
Yeah.
I'm on Twitter, man. How do we not have Cam Whitmore news?
I do not know. Do you like Justin Edwards more than like the Moses Moody, Gary Trents of the world now?
Do I like who more?
Justin Edwards.
Yeah, Justin Edwards is the best chalk piece amongst all of those guys. God, Cam Whitmore is going to be lower owned now if he ends up in than he definitely should be. This is so annoying. What am I supposed to do for 7 minutes with like this massive piece in the wings? Like, what am I actually supposed to do?
Be calm and pray.
I think I'm going to just take all the Cam Whitmore out. I'm going to just have 0. I'm going to put him at 0. I'm going to change Tate to like Cam Whitmore available to play. Thank God. I'm not going to change him to 0. That is very important. All right. We're going to get to a little bit more Cam Whitmore. This is just stupid, man. I'm going to play him. We're going to run this sim now. It's going to be very, very close, very down to the wire. Cam Whitmore available to play on cue. All right. What do we do here? Because obviously, I think he's going to be a little bit underneath that 38-40% ownership that we have projected for him, just because of how down to the wire this Q tag came. And I'm not going to say it's going to be drastic. And I think as you go up in buy-ins, I mean, obviously you have a sharper contest that you're going to be going up against Matt Belman and some of the high dollar stuff that you're in. But I think in large field stuff, I'm just going to play a lot of Cam Whitmore.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the question, like, Whitmore, Justin Edwards. Like, who do you think is the more valuable piece now?
I think they're both valuable. I'm going to pull up my top 150 here. I think they're going to end up being my 2 highest owned players if I had to guess. Yep, they are. 75% Cam Whitmore. Jordan Klein, if you're able to get a sim in, that would be super awesome to share with the people. I'll run one on FanDuel here in the background as well because we want to give you guys good information. There is no playback show after this show with Greg and with Josh Engleman. So you got us for 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, we're going to get our lineups in together right now. Cam Whitmore, Justin Edwards. They have shooting guard, small forward, and small forward, power forward eligibility. I think they make a lot of sense to be getting to. I also like the idea of playing Drew Eubanks as a bit of a placeholder right now, showing up a lot for me in the Sims. I plan on rotating that around a lot based on what we get from the starting lineup news, based on the Portland news that I obviously talked about before. 8 and somebody that is coming in right now at 22% of my lineups. I'm very happy to see that allocation. And then Anthony Davis, he's going to be the center that I definitely want to get to a little bit more here. Happy to trim some of the Giannis exposure that I have. Kyle Filipowski, one tournament option we didn't talk about, but again, want to react to that later lineup stuff. Don't want to get to as much Eric Gordon here now. We have Justin Edwards starting alongside of him there, a little bit more usage, although Ricky Council wouldn't have been exactly low usage next to him there. Chris Middleton, a little bit interesting, but more of a placeholder for me. Same thing with Moses Moody. Looking through my lineups, it is a lot of Cam Whitmore, a lot of Justin Edwards, a lot of Amin Thompson. Is it the same that you're looking at in your lineup, Matt Belman?
Yeah, I think that those are the best plays on the slate. So I'm working on it right now, but when I finalize, I will let you know.
All right. Did we have any other super chats come in, Jordan Klein? Because obviously 2.8K people, you've been hanging out with us through the ups and the downs of this show as we waited for the Houston Rockets to get their shit together. But anyway, 72% Cam Whitmore is going to be my final number. Yes, Jordan. I did. The FanDuel. Yep. Covered the FanDuel one already. And now Cam Whitmore, definitely going to be the guy there. Want to make sure that I didn't get to any Tate. All right. Because I basically have zero desire to click on that button anymore. So congratulations to Jayshawn Tate on his career game this afternoon. Way to go. You're a real one. That's just kind of the way that it's been going here lately. But I am going to get this final run in. I feel pretty good about this. Anything that you're seeing in your lineup, what lineups, hang on. How many guys are you playing from the early window of games?
Probably more than I anticipated, but again, I'll let you know in 1 minute as soon as I have it finalized.
All right, you get that finalized here. I'm going to just make sure that I don't have any Capella Okongwu overlap, although with Capella at 4,600, I don't think it's completely crazy. I'm seeing if I got to any of Mr. Gee. We have the Knights who say Gee. I got 4% of him. That's fine. I think at a flat 3K and 150 lineups, I'm all right with that. I'm going to upload this. Thank you to the Sims tool for existing, because I don't think I would be remotely capable of doing this without anything. Ryan, Mr. Rinpack himself, DMing me. He's curious about my Quinn Post takes. I don't really have a ton of them. He's showing up in like a couple of lineups for me. My big thing is that there's just no reason that they have to roll him out there. The one thing he does do is knock down threes. And if he's knocking down threes, he'll probably get some more run. Just feel like I've seen his name talked about a lot. He's pulling north of 10% ownership. It's 10% ownership coming into a guy named Quentin Post. I just want to repeat that out loud for the people. I'm pasting this in. Again, the entry manager makes life so much easier for me. I can do that. I can upload this. And I will be ready to do some late swaps a little bit later here. But I'm hoping, Edwards, that'll work out now here, because again, nothing like playing like 72% of a guy that you basically were besmirching the entire show. Same thing here that I'm looking at with Cam Whitmore, hoping he walks into some more run considering Houston on the back-to-back. Awesome spot going up against Atlanta. But we've got 2 minutes here. I'm letting Matt finish up his lineups here. Yeah, we got all the super chats. We had 2.8K of you hanging out with us the entire time, plus 700 likes. We love you so much. Pay attention to news. You got Ayton. That's the biggie that we're still waiting on. Something is going to break in that afternoon window, but react to how your lineups do. We have some new enhancements that are also coming very, very shortly to the Sims tool that will be awesome for situations like this. We'll tell you more about that coming up a little bit later in the week. Excited to share those details with you. Amazing job from our developmental team there. Unbelievable stuff. I can't wait for those slates coming up here very shortly. It's going to be a great February here, I think, in these Stokastic streets. But Matt, 20 seconds to go. Did you get your lineup finalized?
I did, and I was going back and forth. I'm only playing Amen Thompson early.
Wow.
All my other spots are late. And again, I think that Edwards and Whitmore right now are better plays than guys like Moody and Trent. But I don't think they're that much better where the ownership's going to be now. So I'm holding out, hoping we get some late news. Maybe Ayton's out. I felt a little rushed. Obviously, we're doing a show. It's difficult. So I figured might as well just give myself more time. And, I was originally going to do that anyways. I hope Whitmore doesn't break the slate. I understand why he's getting love, though. I just don't think, again, I don't think Whitmore and Edwards are like so much better plays than the guys in the late games.
Before we get off this show, because again, we have no playback show, Jordan Klein, I think, is okay to hang out for 1 minute as we pull this up. I'm very curious in the main contest over on DK today, what ended up happening with Cam Whitmore's ownership. And obviously, this was a big talking point for us today. And so I do want to stay on for like 2 seconds here. Do you have Cam Whitmore's ownership in your high dollar contest that you're playing in here now? Because I'm just kind of waiting.
As soon as it loads, I will get it because I'm with you.
I'm very curious. Got to 20% Whitmore. Some people playing 20% Whitmore. I want to see it here quick just because it is so interesting to me. And we got right around 30% Cam Whitmore in just about every contest that I'm looking at. 30, 32, 33%. 40 in yours? That makes complete sense. Alrighty.
I thought Amen Thompson was going to be higher. He's like 50, 55, which is high, but not like crazy high.
Yep, 26 in the main. That's awesome. Cam Whitmore, we're hoping you have a good game. I'm hoping he has a good game. I hope he doesn't have an outrageous game where my buddy Matt Belman can at least take down the high dollar that he is playing in here today as well. But thank you to Jordan Klein, and thank you to him. Follow him at Fantasy. Steph Curry questionable?
There we go. Now you see why maybe it's holding out the late spots potentially. Like,
any final words for the people as we get out of here?
I feel vindicated. I'm not gonna lie, because I was going back and forth. Now we got potentially crazy late news, which makes. We talked about Wiggins a minute ago. You talk about a fantastic play potentially. I feel like I'm in a good spot now. Now, the Whitmores and Justin Edwards of the world can obviously go off, but man, I could be sitting in a good spot now with only Amen Thompson early. I mean, he's not playing. Like, he's not playing now. You know what I mean?
Thank you, everybody, for coming to our show. Jordan Klein, hit the music. God help us all.